On July 30th, 2024, at around 9:41 a.m., emergency crews at the Ely State Prison responded to an incident involving a fight among several inmates that ultimately turned deadly. 3 people lost their lives and 9 others were also injured and taken to the hospital. The 3 people that were killed were all members of the infamous Aryan Warriors white supremacist prison gang. The 3 victims, Connor Brown, Zachariah Luce, and Anthony Williams, were all serving long prison sentences for a variety of crimes. The leader, Zachariah Luce, was wrapped up in a 2019 indictment along with 22 other Aryan Warrior prison gang members involving murder, racketeering, and drug trafficking. A spokesperson for the Clark County Department of Corrections, as well as a member of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, said the Aryan Warriors are accused and have been proven to commit some of the worst crimes in the state. Although they try to set a clear ideology beliefs, they also commit acts that other typical prison gang members do that corrupt and highly influence all areas on the streets and in the Department of Corrections.
Yeah, prosecutors say the Aryan Warrior gang is responsible for 4 murders in this massive criminal case. The video we will show you will be used as evidence in one of those murders. It's also at the center of a civil lawsuit filed in federal court by the murder victim's family. I want to warn our viewers, the video is graphic and disturbing.
He wasn't a saint, but he didn't deserve what happened to him.
That's the father of Andrew Thurgood in an exclusive interview with 8 News Now in July of 2018. It is now 3.5 years after his son was killed at High Desert State Prison, and the 2 suspects are finally charged. According to this coroner's report, he was taken to the prison infirmary, complained he couldn't breathe, and died nearly an hour later. Thurgood was 26 years old and serving time for driving a stolen car.
When he first got into the prison, there was several people beating up an older guy, and he kind of stuck up for the guy, and I think that was towards the gang, and that's kind of how their conflict started.
And that gang is the focus of an indictment of 23 people in August. Prosecutors say they're members of the white supremacist Aryan Warriors. Photos the I-Team obtained show tattoos some have, including swastikas. Charges vary for the defendants and include drug trafficking, robbery, forgery, attempted murder, and more. Yes. Prosecutors tell the I-Team they will seek the death penalty for Williams and Goycochea.
Not guilty to everything.
On Wednesday, they appeared in court with co-defendants and pleaded not guilty. In the lawsuit, he also claims there is an unholy alliance between officers and some inmates like the Aryan Warriors to help maintain order and protect employees.
We contacted the Nevada Department of Corrections to find out if employees named in the lawsuit still work there. And for a comment, a spokesman said the NDOC is cooperating with law enforcement agencies on the murder case, and because no videos have been officially disseminated to reporters and the public, there will be no comment since, in his words, it could potentially jeopardize the case. But you know what, Brian? That video is public information.
And Vanessa, at this time, what is the status of both the civil and criminal cases?
It appears there may be a settlement in the works with the NDOC and Andrew Thurgood's family. A trial date is set for some of the defendants in November.
Trial dates have now been set for November for more than 20 people accused of being Aryan Warrior gang members. Now, we've learned that 2 men accused of murder will now get a separate trial. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy was in the courtroom today and has more from the Regional Justice Center.
23 people are accused of being Aryan Warriors, and charges for this group of defendants vary. They include murder, attempted murder, drug trafficking, and more. We've learned 2 of the defendants will now get a separate case. That's because they are the only defendants prosecutors intend on seeking the death penalty for. Now, today in criminal court, several defendants appeared before Judge Douglas Herndon. We learned the evidence from this case is extensive. So far, the defendants we've seen have pleaded not guilty. The next court date is October 16th. One defendant appearing by video from prison, according to a prosecutor, was flashing white power symbols. That video was immediately cut off. Reporting from downtown Las Vegas, Vanessa Murphy.
At least one defendant in a case against alleged members of a white supremacist gang has agreed to a plea deal. Thank you for joining us at 6:30. I'm Kirsten Joyce.
And I'm Brian Loftus. This afternoon, a judge set several court dates for other defendants, and this is a story 8 News Now has been reporting on after an indictment against 23 people who investigators say are in the Aryan Warrior gang. Charges vary, and include murder, drug trafficking, and more. The I-Team brought you exclusive jail interviews with 3 defendants in September, including Jess Guth. Court records reveal Guth has pleaded guilty to racketeering and is set to be sentenced next year. Other charges against Guth would be dropped, and here's what he told the I-Team back in September.
I've been working. I'm not a white supremacist. I'm not a gang member. Listen, I'm an active member of society.
According to court documents, Guth has an Aryan Warrior tattoo. The I-Team obtained these photos, which show the tattoo on
tonight at 11, 2 of the 23 accused white supremacist gang members are now facing the death penalty. Prosecutors made that announcement today in court. The 2 were among the Aryan Warrior gang members who were arrested. They pleaded not guilty to crimes including murder, drug trafficking, and identity theft.
8 News Now investigators confirming one of 3 inmates killed in a fight at the Ely State Prison was a white supremacist and leader of the so-called Aryan Warriors. 43-year-old Zachariah Luz was also involved in prior riots at another facility. The White Pine County Sheriff's Office saying 22-year-old Connor Brown was another inmate killed in the latest fight. Officials have not released the 3rd inmate's name. No officer was injured. 8 News Now investigators confirming one of 3 inmates killed.
A man from South Lake Tahoe was one of those 3 inmates killed in a brawl at Ely State Prison yesterday. The White Pine County Sheriff's Office says 22-year-old Connor Brown of South Lake Tahoe and 43-year-old Zachariah Luz, who was sentenced in Clark County, were 2 of the 3 killed. The Sheriff's Office says just before 10 yesterday morning, they got reports of a fight between inmates. 9 other inmates were injured in this brawl, and it remains under investigation.
Fox 5 News starts now.
Now at 3 o'clock, 2 of the 3 inmates killed in a prison fight have been identified. The fight broke out at the Ely State Prison yesterday morning. 43-year-old Zachariah Luz and 22-year-old Connor Brown were killed. Prison records show Luz was serving a sentence of 7 to 14 years for a variety of charges, including attempted burglary. Brown was also serving a 7 to 10-year sentence for robbery and use of a deadly weapon. The 3rd victim has not yet been identified as officers wait to notify next of kin. And following that deadly fight, one woman is making some difficult phone calls. The founder of Return Strong Nevada talked with Fox 5 today about her talks with the families of the inmates who died yesterday. She provides them with resources like information about how to retrieve their loved ones' bodies from the prison. She says it's tough for everyone involved in those conversations.
Losing people at all is not easy. Losing them under these circumstances is even more difficult. And I will say our team is struggling right now.
Governor Joe Lombardo's office says the incident was gang-related.
Officials telling us who they say was the 3rd inmate killed in a fight Tuesday at Ely State Prison. 41-year-old Anthony Williams was serving a life sentence for killing an inmate at another facility in 2016. We've also learned the 3 men who died in this latest fight were all stabbed. Sources tell our 8 News Now investigators it involved rival gangs.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Really interesting story, man, out of Ely State Prison in Clark County, Nevada. The Aryan Warriors prison gang, who this was obviously involving, is originally based out of the state of Nevada. They are a white supremacist prison gang. You know, obviously, kind of like a lot of the other ones, they try to portray that their ideologies are all that matters. And not say anything against them or bad. You know, racists have to protect themselves in prison. Black, white, Hispanic, Native American, Oriental, doesn't matter. But obviously, authorities have said they're not just portraying and giving off their ideologies. They're committing crimes and they're actively running across state lines, drug trafficking, murders, racketeering, all kinds of things. So it's just like every other street gang. But in this case, really interesting because this just happened not too long ago. 3 members of the Aryan Warriors prison gang were murdered. kind of in the early morning hours of July 30th, 2024, an emergency call went out. They responded around 9:41 a.m. and what initially thought to be was just a fight. 3 people ended up dying. So they had 2 names come out pretty quickly. And then we finally got the third name of that. And those names were actually, we're going to start with the last guy that was identified, 41-year-old Anthony Williams. He was identified as actually the third one killed in that July 30th fight that turned deadly at Nevada's maximum security prison in rural Ely. And that's in Clark County, Nevada. 9 other inmates ended up being injured. So what's interesting about this is these guys basically were all stabbed to death. They come out, the authorities say all the right things. It's an ongoing investigation. The other people identified were 22-year-old Connor Brown of South Lake Tahoe, California, and 42-year-old Zachariah Luce, who was identified as a leader, one of the leaders of the Aryan Warriors prison gang. Again, he's one of the 3 that died. With Anthony Williams, he was actually in prison and he had been sent to Ely after he was convicted of a murder that happened in prison. He murdered another inmate. He was serving a life sentence. He wasn't initially sentenced to life. He's in another prison in Nevada. He ends up killing another inmate in around 2016. Okay. Again, he was the last one that ended up being identified. All right. Anthony Williams and another inmate stabbed their victim in 2016. His name was a guy by the name of Andrew Ryan Thorogood, and they were all at High Desert State Prison in southern Nevada, and that's when Anthony Williams and another guy attacked him and murdered him. With Zachariah Luce, it's kind of interesting, and I'm kind of reading through it here. He had been wrapped up in a really serious RICO indictment in 2019 where him and 22 other guys were arrested. Racketeering, he was tied in with murders, drug trafficking, kind of go-to RICO charges. And again, we talk about RICO. For those of you who haven't turned to my other videos, RICO, again, it's a way that the federal government went after the mob decades ago, and you're able to go after the bosses. You're able to go after the guys that you want to get. And ever since then, it's been the number one tool for the feds to go after street gangs, prison and street gangs, Mexican Mafia, Aryan Brotherhood, Aryan Warriors. In this case, we're talking about they were stabbed and murdered. But like we talked about with Zachariah Luce, he had a history. He was wrapped up in a racketeering case. He's a leader. That's how they get these leaders, because I don't want to say like it's easy to get them, but if you actually go look up RICO, it's just like you can just have conspiracy to commit crime. You can just talk about doing this and this and this. You're seeing it with other cases. Like if you're going to go commit an armed robbery and you say, hey, Dylan, I need you to help me rent a car, right? Because you don't want to use your own car, obviously. And I rent the car and it comes out, or the authorities are able to at least get enough info to where I knew what they were going to do with it. Even if I didn't do it, even if I said, hey, man, I don't want nothing to do with this, whatever, here's the car, I can go down for those crimes, or at least get charged with racketeering, conspiracy to commit ABC. It's just crazy how the feds can do it. And that's part of the reason why their conviction rate is so damn high. That's why they say when the feds come, they come correct. And they're coming for your neck, too. With state time, and every state's different, and we've talked about this before. A lot of state time, you get third off, or maybe even less, and you can parole out early. With the feds, the general rule of thumb is you got to do 85% of your sentence. Minimum. A lot of times it's not even less than that. Your days off for good time you get throughout the year are minimal compared to state time. So, again, when the feds come and they really want to nail these guys to the wall, they're going to come in with those racketeering. It's kind of like you're going to see the similar terminology in all these videos I do. Racketeering, corrupt influence, murder charges, drug trafficking charges. And when you use those key words, trafficking, gang enhancement charges, right? That's how they put these guys under the jail for very, very long time. Ely State Prison is kind of one of those, it's a max security. No COs were hurt in that case. But the thing is that the conditions at this particular prison, they've drawn criticism for a long time because obviously Nevada, Las Vegas, it gets very, very hot. And you can die of heat exhaustion. So, and then it gets very cold. It's the desert. So it gets, for those of you that don't know, it gets super hot during the day, super cold at night. Several people incarcerated at Ely State Prison, they had hunger strikes. Family members described as unsafe conditions, inadequate food portions. And, you're trying to get legislation, you're trying to get your local congressperson, your local mayor, governor. Usually it's got to go to Congress or something like that. Stuff like that. And a lot of times, sad enough, with cases like this, people go, well, hey, shouldn't have committed the crime. You shouldn't be, well, if you didn't do the crime, you wouldn't be there in the first place. But it's like, guys, it doesn't work like that. I try not to speak too much of my opinion, but just because somebody gets sentenced to something or somebody made a mistake, and again, I know a lot of these guys, even the guys we're talking about that were murdered, they were career criminals. They themselves hurt a lot of people, including taking lives. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a system in place, right, things become like almost anarchy, right? If there's no control, if there's no drawing of a line by someone to say, hey, we can't just treat people like this, then it becomes stuff like third world countries and where people are just murdered on a whim and conditions are whatever and overstacked and disease. And we're better than that. We just are, Yes, there's a ton of criticism of our prison system for good reason, especially in the privatized section where it's just all for money. And that's why I support seeing these things. I'm on the inmate side. I support this legislation, this fight for better treatment. We just did the video on the Yakima County, the murders out of there. Well, when I was reading through that, they talk about how things were treated in COVID. Inmates were terrified because they weren't doing enough to take care of them, and people were getting sick. And if you already have ongoing health issues, if you're older, you can die. And it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if you go, wow, who cares? It's just an inmate. No, that's wrong. You have a duty to protect them. You put them there. You have to protect them. I'm not saying as a CEO, if you see a fight or something going on, whatever, man, let them fight. You don't got to risk your life to jump in the middle of a beef, between two guys trying to stab each other to death. But just basic human good. If we don't have that, no matter what, even if you're going in there and trying to help people that don't want to be helped, like some of these inmates are super disrespectful. There's a reason you took the job. There's a reason a congressperson's in place. You have to protect your constituents. You have to protect the general population. That's whether you like it or not. You don't get to pick and choose who you protect. So anyway, there you guys have it. Thought this was a really, really interesting story. Working on another one, guys. It's just been crazy busy at work for me. That's why I couldn't get one out yesterday. But anyway, much love. Appreciate you guys. Till next time. Peace.